Welcome to the history quiz. 30 questions. Let's go. You have 7 seconds to answer each question, and then we explain the answer. Who was the first president of the United States? George Washington was inaugurated on April 30, 1789. He served 2 terms and voluntarily stepped down, setting the precedent later enshrined in the 22nd Amendment. He remains the only president to have been unanimously elected by the Electoral College twice. In what year did World War II end? World War II ended in 1945. Germany surrendered on May 8, V-Day, and Japan on September 2, VJ Day, after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It remains the deadliest conflict in human history, killing an estimated 70 to 85 million people. Which empire was the largest in history by land area? The British Empire peaked at around 35.5 million square kilometers in the 1920s, covering roughly a quarter of Earth's land. The phrase "the empire on which the sun never sets" was literally accurate. At its peak, sunlight was always shining somewhere within its territory. Who painted the Mona Lisa? Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa between approximately 1503 and 1519. It is the world's most visited, written about, and parodied artwork. Despite measuring just 77 by 53 centimeters, it is protected behind bulletproof glass and draws around 20,000 visitors daily to the Louvre. Which is the only ancient wonder of the world still standing? The Great Pyramid of Giza, built around 2560 BC, is the only ancient wonder still standing. It held the record as the tallest man-made structure for over 3,800 years and is so precisely aligned that its 4 sides deviate from true north by just 0.05 degrees. Which country was the first to grant women the right to vote? New Zealand became the first self-governing country to grant women voting rights in 1893, led by suffragist Kate Sheppard. Women in the UK gained partial voting rights in 1918 and full rights in 1928, while US women won the vote in 1920 with the 19th Amendment. In which year did the Berlin Wall fall? The Berlin Wall fell on November 9, 1989, after 28 years dividing East and West Berlin. A miscommunicated announcement about travel regulations drew crowds to the checkpoints, and the guards simply opened the gates. German reunification followed in October 1990. Who was the first person to complete a circumnavigation of the globe? Magellan organized the expedition but was killed in the Philippines in 1521. His navigator Juan Sebastián Elcano completed the voyage, returning to Spain in 1522. Of the original 5 ships and 270 men, only 1 ship and 18 survivors made it back. Which civilization built Machu Picchu? The Inca built Machu Picchu around 1450 AD high in the Peruvian Andes at 2,430 meters. It was abandoned roughly 100 years later, likely due to smallpox. It was virtually unknown outside local communities until Hiram Bingham visited in 1911 and introduced it to the wider world. In what century did the French Revolution begin? The French Revolution began in 1789, the 18th century. It was triggered by financial crisis, food shortages, and inequality. The storming of the Bastille on July 14 became its defining symbol. The revolution ended the French monarchy and eventually led to Napoleon's rise. How long did the 100 Years' War actually last? Despite its name, the 100 Years' War lasted 116 years, 1337 to 1453, fought between England and France over the French throne. Joan of Arc played a pivotal role before being burned at the stake in 1431. France ultimately prevailed, ending English claims to the French crown. Who was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize? Marie Curie won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903, then won a second Nobel in Chemistry in 1911, becoming the first person to win Nobel Prizes in two different sciences. She discovered polonium and radium and pioneered research on radioactivity, a word she coined. In which year did Columbus first reach the Americas? Columbus landed in the Bahamas on October 12, 1492, believing he had reached Asia. He made 4 voyages to the Americas but never reached the North American mainland, and died in 1506 still convinced he had reached Asia. His voyages initiated permanent European contact with the Americas. Who was the first person to walk on the moon? Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon on July 20, 1969 during Apollo 11, saying that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Buzz Aldrin joined minutes later while Michael Collins orbited above. The entire mission lasted 8 days. How long did the Great Wall of China take to build? The Great Wall was not one construction but a series of walls built across more than 2,000 years by successive Chinese dynasties, from the 7th century BC through the Ming dynasty in the 17th century. The most iconic sections were constructed during the Ming dynasty, 1368 to 1644. In which year did the Western Roman Empire fall? The Western Roman Empire is traditionally dated to have fallen in 476 AD when Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus. The Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantine, continued for nearly another 1,000 years until Constantinople fell to the Ottomans in 1453. Who led the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1917? Vladimir Lenin led the Bolshevik Revolution in October 1917, overthrowing the provisional government established after the Tsar's abdication. He became the first leader of the Soviet Union. His political ideology of Marxism-Leninism shaped communist governments worldwide throughout the 20th century. Which empire introduced the world's first written legal code? The Code of Hammurabi, created by Babylonian King Hammurabi around 1754 BC, is one of the oldest known written legal codes. Containing 282 laws covering trade, family, and crime, it introduced the principle of proportional justice, the precursor to an eye for an eye. The Black Death is estimated to have killed what fraction of Europe's population? The Black Death, 1347 to 1351, killed an estimated 1/3 to half of Europe's population, up to 50 million people. Caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis spread by fleas on rats, it fundamentally reshaped European society, labor relations, and the power of the Catholic Church. Where was Napoleon defeated in his final battle? Napoleon was defeated at the Battle of Waterloo in Belgium on June 18, 1815, by Wellington's coalition forces. He was exiled to the remote South Atlantic island of St. Helena, where he died in 1821. His defeat ended 23 years of nearly continuous warfare in Europe. Who assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, triggering World War I? Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb nationalist, assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. The killing triggered a chain of alliance obligations that pulled 30 nations into war within 6 weeks, resulting in 20 million deaths. Which ancient Greek historian is known as the father of history? Herodotus, 484 to 425 BC, is called the father of history because he was the first to systematically collect and verify historical accounts in his work, The Histories. He documented the Greco-Persian Wars and the cultures of the ancient world in an empirical rather than purely mythological way. Which surprising fact is true about Cleopatra? Cleopatra VII was of Macedonian Greek descent. The Ptolemaic dynasty was founded after Alexander the Great's conquest. She was reportedly the first ruler of her line to learn the Egyptian language, also speaking 9 others. The pyramids were built nearly 2,500 years before she was born. How many terms did Franklin D. Roosevelt serve as U.S. president? FDR was elected to 4 terms, 1933 to 1945, the only president to serve more than 2. He guided the U.S. through the Great Depression and most of World War II but died in office in April 1945. His unprecedented tenure directly led to the 22nd Amendment limiting presidents to 2 terms. Where did the Renaissance originate? The Renaissance began in 14th century Italy, particularly in Florence under Medici patronage. It was a revival of classical art, literature, and learning that transformed European culture. The Italian Renaissance produced Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Galileo, and Machiavelli. Who was Julius Caesar assassinated by? Julius Caesar was stabbed 23 times by a group of senators including Brutus and Cassius on March 15, 44 BC. Shakespeare immortalized the moment with Et2, Brute. Caesar's assassination plunged Rome into civil war, ultimately leading to the rise of his adopted son Octavian as the first Roman emperor. Which invention did Gutenberg develop that transformed the world in the 15th century? Johannes Gutenberg developed the movable type printing press in Mainz, Germany, around 1440. His Gutenberg Bible, c. 1455, was the first mass-produced book in Europe. The press democratized knowledge, fueled the Renaissance and Reformation, and is often cited as the most important invention of the second millennium. Which U.S. president delivered the Gettysburg Address? Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address on November 19, 1863, at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery. At just 272 words, it is one of the most quoted speeches in American history, redefining the Civil War as a fight for human equality and recharging public support for the Union cause. Which empire controlled much of India for nearly 200 years? The British Raj ruled India from 1858 to 1947, when India gained independence led by Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. The British East India Company had controlled much of India before the Raj was formally established after the 1857 uprising. India's independence on August 15, 1947, is celebrated as Independence Day. Who built the first successful powered aeroplane? Orville and Wilbur Wright made the first successful powered flight on December 17, 1903, at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The first flight lasted just 12 seconds and covered 37 meters. Within decades, aviation transformed warfare, commerce, and global travel beyond anything the brothers could have imagined. How did you do? Let us know in the comments, and test your knowledge in these categories next.